Welcome to the Chronicles Men Basketball Beat Writers Podcast. I'm Scott Rich, here with Tom Gieryn. We're going to start out today our three questions talking a little bit about what happened over break. Tom, what did you see from this Duke basketball team over the winter break?
Well, I think it's hard to make too many judgments, especially early on in the break. They played some bad teams, obviously.
That's putting it lightly.
Western Michigan and Penn, not good teams. Real sloppy day against Temple. It's hard to know what to think of that. Obviously, they've been only practicing, not much competition. But I think rebounding is the real issue that we've seen. And perimeter defense are the two things I'm worried about going forward. Two very good perimeters. Georgia Tech is not a very good team. Put up a good fight. Because we had problems on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's been a point of concern from Coach K and from the team all year is where that defense is going to come from. That's why Coach K decided to put Tyler Thornton into the starting lineup after that Ohio State game. But I agree with you that you can't take that much from those games against Pennsylvania, against Western Michigan. But I was encouraged by the fact that they talk a lot about the eye test when it comes down to the NCAA tournament. And Duke did look good in those games. Obviously, Temple is another story. But Duke showed that they can run their offense, they can get the type of possessions and the type of play that they want against these inferior teams. Which again, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but that's better than struggling against these teams, as we've seen Duke teams do in the past, and as we've seen other teams do this year.
Right, and then the question is the big change that occurred over break, at least towards the end. Georgia Tech game, Quinn Cook in the first ACC game of his career and of Duke's season gets the start over Tyler Thornton at the point. Is this something we should look for to continue?
Well, I've always been a big Tyler Thornton guy. I know you aren't, but I do like this move just because I feel like Tyler Thornton's skill set is more suited to the bench. Tyler Thornton he is an offensive liability despite his inane ability to make threes in the clutch for no apparent reason. But his defense is better coming off the bench as, he's going to come in for 10-15 minutes in important times and make that defensive stop. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Thornton actually playing, the last 5 minutes of the game for that defense, considering the problem Duke has had with perimeter defense.
And I agree that Cook will continue to start over Thornton, and I think that's the right move. I think Cook is definitely the most explosive player on this Duke team right now. A lot of talent, but not a lot to show for it. And Cook is the one guy, seems to have a little bit of attitude out there, playing great defense, and distributing the ball really well. 5 assists to 1 turnover in that game against Georgia Tech. Scored 10 points. Was definitely, especially early in the game, was the reason that Duke got out to a big lead before letting that slip away.
Yeah, and the thing I really liked about his play, especially against Georgia Tech, is the way he got the bigs involved. He really got Mason and Miles Plumlee, and to a lesser extent Ryan Kelly, more involved in the game. It reminded me a little bit more of what we saw from Kyrie Irving early last year, where if you remember, and obviously this was a long time ago, but early last season it looked like Mason Plumlee was going to come out of his shell because of the way Kyrie Irving was getting him the ball in good situations. Obviously Mason and Miles and Ryan have all improved, but I saw a little bit of that from Quinn, the ability to get those bigs involved. And considering Duke's emphasis on scoring in the paint this year, I think that's going to be very important. So now let's transition into ACC season, into this upcoming game against Virginia. Virginia is known as one of the best defensive teams in the country. What do you see as the important matchups in this game, and how does Duke come out victorious?
Well, the big matchups in this game are going to be in the paint. In the paint, you've got Mike Scott in the paint, averaging 16 and 9, 16 points and 9 rebounds. I mean, he's been a force. He's a fifth-year senior, has used Duke in the past, and playing in the paint with him is Hassan Sen, another fifth-year senior, true 7-footer out of Senegal, averaging almost a block per game. Not much on the offensive end, but he's certainly a big body. The Plumlees are going to have to be physical inside if they're going to hang with the Cavaliers, who are only allowing almost just over 50 points a game, which is a fabulous pace defensively.
Yeah, I think what this game is going to come down to is you mentioned the word pace, and I think that's a critical word there. Virginia is ranked 339th in the country in terms of pace of play. Duke is ranked somewhere in the upper quarter of the league. So that's something that's going to come into play. Who can determine the pace of the game? Is Quinn Cook's presence as more of a push the ball point guard? Is that going to propel Duke to a faster style of game, or is Virginia going to be able to slow down the game, force Duke to play in its half-court sets, and at the same time be able to shut Duke down defensively?
Absolutely. I think Duke will try and run. Virginia is one of the slowest teams in the country, as you said, and it will definitely come down to who can control the pace. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Look forward to our continued coverage after the Virginia game and on into the rest of the ACC season. Thanks for joining us.